You might recognize the last name Gulak and think of Drew Gulak, and the person we're talking about today is actually Drew Gulak's brother, Rory Gulak, who you might not have even known was a wrestler. He made his wrestling debut in 2008 for Combat Zone Wrestling and continued the next few years working for promotions in his home state of Pennsylvania. Eventually he'd start to work across the rest of the country more and would be a journeyman of the independent scene alongside his brother Drew, who he would sometimes team with and also work against. Drew Gulak was signed to the WWE in 2016, but Rory would remain on the indies, continuing to work for various promotions, and in 2017 he would become a trainer at the Wrestle Factory. This was a wrestling school ran by the promotion Chikara, and the same school that Rory Gulak himself had trained at to become a wrestler. And everything seemed all fine and dandy as he continued to be a journeyman of the indies whilst training others. However, in January 2020, that would all come crashing down for him when an allegation was made about him that boiled down to him owning and showing others images that can be described with the letters C and P. And the very next day, on January 6, 2020, Chikara and Wrestle Factory posted a joint statement that read, "Last week, both Chikara and the Wrestle Factory severed ties with Rory Gulak. We take allegations of misconduct very seriously. In accordance with this, we cooperate completely and transparently with all law enforcement agencies. Our priority is and always will be the safety of our fans, cast and crew." And since this, Rory Gulak hasn't worked a match again and is nowhere to be found in the wrestling industry. If these allegations are indeed true, then how long was he doing this for, and how long did he have those images for? And the fact that he was training wrestlers whilst allegedly having those images is just insane. That person should not be training other wrestlers. Next up is Jasper Davis, a former Reality of Wrestling roster member who found himself not only blacklisted from the wrestling scene, but also in jail behind bars for very sinister reasons. On the 13th of July 2013, Jasper Davis made his debut for Reality of Wrestling. Jasper made his wrestling debut in 2008 and by this point had been grinding the Texas independent wrestling scene for the last 5 years, wrestling for companies such as NWA Houston and World of Wrestling. Following his debut and occasional matches for Reality of Wrestling in 2013, he would start exclusively wrestling for Reality of Wrestling in the summer of 2014. During his time in Reality of Wrestling, Jasper Davies was mainly a tag team wrestler. He first formed a team with Alex Reigns, and they even challenged for the Reality of Wrestling tag team titles in May of 2015, but were unsuccessful. In 2016, however, though, himself and fellow wrestler Cedric Payne in Reality of Wrestling formed their own team titled the Alpha Unit. And on the 11th of March 2017, Alpha Unit would defeat Ryan Davidson in a 2-on-1 handicap match to win the Reality of Wrestling tag team titles. Yes, that's right, tag team titles in a handicap match, because wrestling. However, they unfortunately would be a victim of being transitional champions as they held the titles for less than a month before losing them to the team of Nomak and Shawn Hendricks. This would start a feud between the two teams, with Alpha Unit challenging Nomak and Hendricks multiple times throughout 2017 unsuccessfully, before finally on the 12th of August 2017 on the Summer of Champions show, Alpha Unit won a 4-way tag team title match to win back the Reality of Wrestling tag team titles, and they were going to have a proper reign this time round. They defended the titles successfully twice before losing them to the Heavenly Bodies made up of Desirable Dustin and Jojolo Justin. That was a mouthful, but it ended their reign at 3 months. But not only would this be the end of their reign, it would also be the end of Jasper Davis's career in Reality of Wrestling. Because as of today, this was his final wrestling match. And that's probably because on December 8th, 2017, Jasper Davies was arrested and charged with murder after killing his girlfriend. This article from 411 Mania reads, Jasper Davis has been arrested for murder. The 29-year-old Davis claims the shooting death of his 24-year-old girlfriend, Jennifer Nicole Mamo, was an accident. Prosecutors claim that Davis and Mamo had an argument after she accused him of flirting with another woman at a bar, and Davis told police that his girlfriend grabbed a gun, and when he tried to take it away, it went off. Davis said that Mamo was shot in the face. And according to court documents, Jasper Davis tried to dump her body by a creek, and as he was driving away, his car got stuck in mud and he had to call his dad to pull it out. 2 years later, on February 19, 2020, Jasper Davies was found guilty of murder. However, his sentence length remains unknown, probably due to the fact that he appealed the verdict in August, and that is still ongoing. But it's safe to say that we will most likely never be seeing Jasper Davies involved in wrestling ever again. Next up is a man called Brian McGee, who went by most of his wrestling career under the name of Donovan Terrell, a former WWE developmental talent who exploded headlines in 2013 when he caught a charge for first-degree murder. Brian McGee is a wrestler who wrestled in Florida under the name DT Porter, and I think I might just read off his biography paragraph from his pro wrestling fandom Wikipedia, because this has aged so incredibly poorly. DT Porter has never had it easy. Most of his childhood, he was an outcast, bullied and teased for not having as much as the other children in his neighborhood. It wasn't until high school that DT broke out of his shell by becoming a star in varsity sports. After high school, DT joined the Navy, learning toughness, discipline, and embracing a newfound confidence. After serving his country, DT took to the ring with an attitude of never say die. Once the oppressed, DT is now the one doing the enforcing, determined to take out all of his childhood pain and torment out on the bodies of his opposition. DT lacks mercy and will deliver great anger and furious vengeance on any who stands in his way. Brian began wrestling as DT Porter in 2006 and wrestled across the indie scene all through America. He even had a tryout match against Apollo Crews for IWA Mid-South. How crazy is that? But he got his big break in 2011 when he was signed to a WWE developmental deal wrestling for FCW. He made his FCW debut on the 3rd of March FCW event in 2011. It was a 6-man tag. Him, Buck Dixon, and Kenny Lee lost to Big E Langston, Kenneth Cameron aka Tom Latimer, and Rick Vaughn. He had another match a month later at an FCW event in the FCW arena. Him and Deshaun Bishop were defeated by Buck Dixon and Eric Rowan. But unfortunately, that would be his last FCW match, and he was cut from the company after only just a year, going 0-2 in the company. But this would not stop him in his wrestling career, as he would continue to wrestle in Florida. He would wrestle for more regional indies there, wrestle for places such as the NWA, 0-1, and of course the Team Vision. Come on. Someone shut down this fucking school already. Oh my days, of course he went there. His wrestling career heavily slowed down since leaving FCW, and eventually it would come to a crashing halt after a huge revelation about him. In July 2013, Brian McGee was arrested facing charges of murder after a fatal stabbing of his girlfriend. Quoting from the Ledger, officials said the series of events started when a woman was found stabbed to death at the Del Lago apartments in Tampa. The woman, whose identity has not been released yet, died at the scene. Authorities only said McGee and the woman killed did know each other. Deputies said they quickly knew who they were looking for. Officials said when authorities tracked McGee down, he led them on a car chase on Interstate 75 from Hillsborough County to County Line Road in Pasco County. After his car crashed, McGee was taken into custody and transported to St. Joseph Hospital, where he is being treated for undisclosed injuries. Officials said once he is released, he will be charged with first-degree murder. He also allegedly changed his Facebook profile picture to what allegedly looked to be limbs covered in blood. And he was indeed charged with first-degree murder, and as of 2017, he was still in prison, but I've not been able to find any further updates since. And finally was former independent wrestling veteran Owen Travers, who isn't just on the Indy Wrestling Blacklist, but also on the registry. Owen Travers made his wrestling debut in 2013 and would begin his long journey of grinding out the independent wrestling scene. Like a lot of other wrestlers, Owen Travers remained on the independent scene for his entire career. He never really had a big break in any company such as WWE or AEW or Impact or anywhere like that. He mainly wrestled across the Michigan and Indiana scene and often put people over and was matched against wrestlers who went on to become very big names. However, unfortunately for Owen, that wasn't him. He did get one big break with the WWE though when he got to have one match for them, being squashed by the team of none other than Shane McMahon and The Miz in December of 2018. In 2019, he would get involved with the Nevada-based promotion Future Stars of Wrestling. He won their No Limits Championship, which according to Cage Match was his first ever championship in wrestling, and he would also become a trainer for the promotion school. So even though Owen Travers might not have been signed to a major company like your WWE, like your AEW, like your Impact, he had something going for him in FSW. And while in FSW, he got to work with the likes of Shaggy McLovin. That's an amazing name. Teddy Hart, of course he did. And heck, even Zoe Stark, formerly known as Lacey Ryan. Owen Travers had a new life living in Las Vegas, training for Future Stars of Wrestling, and it seemed as though it was going all good for him. But he was hiding something quite sinister, as in November of 2020, while he was still working as a volunteer coach for Future Stars of Wrestling, he was arrested and charged with sexual assault against a child. According to this article from WrestleZone, he was first investigated by police after a parent reported his teenage daughter said she'd been assaulted by him in 2017, and a second woman claims and told police that she was assaulted by him before a wrestling event in 2015. And after years of court dates, he was finally convicted of attempted lewdness with a child on June 15, 2023. He avoided a prison sentence due to a suspended sentence, however, he must register as a sex offender. Hopefully Owen Travers is nowhere near involved in wrestling ever again. Like and subscribe for more videos, guys, if you did enjoy this one. We've got plenty of more content to come for the month of August, so stay tuned for that. I've been Top 10 Wrestling, goodbye, and keep on rolling.